markings of a kind of, well, not like you in terms of this, but as all the markings of kind of linguist and that kind of person, except has done it all via writing, all via, say, philology, the study of the written language. And so he's absolutely shit at speaking anything. Yep. And so as, horrific a character in a story I was writing. And so as, horrifically thick accents, and he was a German fellow, and doesn't speak English well at all, except can write it quite fluently and perfectly and understand it that way. And it's a very different sort of mindset. And so it's a set of mindset that comes entirely from reading and from writing. And a lot of that if you're interested in learning more about that would be the field of philology, the study of the written language, basically. I mean, in order to say that something is like classical language, you usually say, yeah, Alduin probably remembered this because we had a little comment on like how it was derived, how it's kind of funny. It's not. It's actually, it means love of words in its originalist form, not that. But yeah, philology is pretty much specifically written. Like the idea of something as a classical language means that it has a philological tradition. Means that people have been studying it in its written form. Like, if Sanskrit weren't studied in its written form, it wouldn't be a classical language, basically.
Do we even know how to properly pronounce anything in Sanskrit, or do we just make it up?
Well, for one, some people actually do still speak Sanskrit as a native language.
Okay, well, how about other dead languages?
But of course, but the thing is, like, people that speak it now, people that speak English now, or let's make it easier, people that speak German now speak quite differently from people who spoke Old German.
Yeah, English would have been a bad example because it is one of the most morphic languages on the planet.
That being said, there's still, like, you can even go back to, say, just the 15th century or 16th century and see, like, major vowel shifts. And, yeah, you can see these in things like plays because words don't rhyme anymore, and they used to.
A Polish author I read claims that medieval Polish and modern Polish are still quite similar. I'm not sure how true that is.
It's kind of interesting because all the a lot of the what I call them Tzimiski probably take a lot of the Polish tradition and stuff like that. So
it wasn't the Witcher guy. This was actually before The Witcher was out.
This was a point that I made on your blog. Like, in reality, you would have like medieval vowel pronunciations, which would be different. It'd be kind of cool if you could use, ignoring the fact that a Tzimiski would probably shape you into some weird ass crafty thing crap. Using them as living testaments to old pronunciations would be pretty fucking hilarious.
Like, we need to preserve the Shmitzi because they can pronounce these words still.
Well, they pronounce it in the very old way. That's very important for reading older documents. And yeah, actually a lot of pronunciation stuff does come from philology, even just reading, because, well, rhymes are a big deal too. Yeah, you kind of reconstruct how people wrote, often from rhymes and poetry and stuff like that, or how people spoke. And then also based on, like, going backwards. I mean, we've constructed, like, Proto-Indo-European language just by going backwards, just by figuring out, like, where all sorts of crazy shifts happened, where mergers happened. And it's all very complicated, but yeah, you can kind of basically construct a model of an old language.
Yeah, see, Will, you're the only person who cares about pronunciation
in this small group of us. I mean, certainly pronunciation would be important to historical linguistics, because it's important to see how a pronunciation has changed over time, or that gives you an idea of what other parts of the language would have changed over time. It also affects how, say, spelling.
Like, I think a modern German would understand a medieval German, right?
It depends.
I mean, they'd think they'd have a weird accent.
It depends. Is this modern German from the MTV generation or not?
A German my age.
Um,
And I'm not saying that the medieval German's going to understand the modern German. I'm saying the modern German's going to understand the medieval German.
yeah, it would depend. I mean, I think certainly you could figure things out. I mean, for one, I think humans are pretty decent at coming up with other ways of communicating other than just sharing a common language.
I do mean just talking to each other with
Yeah.
their language, though. I mean,
It's
not like if I went back to medieval England and started talking to people. That, I mean, because Old English is basically an entirely different language.
Oh, well, yeah, Old English, if we're going to go back to, like, say, 1200 or something, then yeah, it's just so totally different. 1500 or so, that's about Chaucer. We can understand Chaucer.
Sort of.
The
way he writes is weird, though.
I memorized some passages of Chaucer and like, in the good pronunciation, and basically got it, understood it, just from getting it. No, it's just like, it's just so totally fucking different.
No, there is somebody who constantly retweets Chaucer doth tweet, and God, that stuff is barely English.
Yeah, Chaucer is Middle English, in case you're interested, and it's pretty fucking crazy. It's got a very high Norman influence, and it's pretty. I mean, it's clearly it's clearly related to what we speak nowadays, but it's pretty crazy.
And yet
that I
a
think
mere 150 years later, we get Shakespeare, and Shakespeare is recognizably English.
It is recognizably English. Now, whether or not we can figure out what he's saying, god damn.
He uses, and like Shakespeare himself, of course, was deliberately
actually what's
prosaic
quite
with the way he used his.
Is that we would probably understand Shakespeare better than he would understand us. Because, well, for instance, we use so many words that he's made up.
Right, and if we hit him at the wrong point, he might not have made up the word yet.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not just him, but yeah, he did a lot for words, and the kind of not just the kind of words, not just specific words, but the kind of styling of words, the kind of making of words that then became later. So if he made up a word, we might be able to understand it to a certain extent. Now,
God,
he also made up like what? Sorry, what?
He married Anne Hathaway. I didn't know she was a time traveler.
What was I gonna say? Now he also made up a ton of other words that like we would titter at, because they're so ridiculous. So there's kind of multiple ways of
it. I'm pretty sure Shakespeare's English didn't have quite as much of a influence from world vocabularies in it yet.
Oh no, certainly no.
So there'd be like a lot of French or Latin root words we have that
most of that came from Old French, which I don't know the timeline on that, but that's where you find. I mean, when I go through etymologies and stuff like that of words, Old French is the big one that pops up lots and lots of places. It is not through a modern French or a modern Romance; it's through an Old French root. And then more synthesized words were just taken like directly from Latin and then kind of chopped up and turned into a word. Sometimes, obviously, Greek and Latin are mixed together.
Yeah. Why don't other languages do that though? Do we actually have a knowledge of why English is so free with grabbing vocabulary that other languages don't seem to be?
I guess this is a reasonable question.
I've always heard it as it's basically because the English were like pirates and invaders and stuff, so they just stole everything. So, but then you'd have to argue like, why didn't the Phoenicians do the same thing?
Well, because the Phoenicians were busy inventing fucking alphabets.
Well, okay, but how about the Aztecs? Why didn't the Aztecs steal all the Mayans' words?
Well, they probably did. Oh, no, they wouldn't have, because they weren't, I don't think they existed at the same time.
Okay, the Incas, you're right.
Well, that actually is going pretty far. Like, Andes are pretty fucking tough to navigate. I mean,
they were pretty stuck in Chile.
We got Swiss German, Swiss Italian, all that. So Then again, even
To
those
live.
are like pretty isolated. Like Swiss German is not German. I don't care what any Switzerland person says. They're just wrong.
Well, there's 3 national languages in Switzerland, and then they have Swiss too. Does Swiss count? I forgot if Swiss technically counted.
There's Swiss German. Well, there's German, Italian, French, and Romansh.
Which is the native language, right?
No, it's
Romanian.
Basically Gypsy. I think it's from the far eastern corner of it. It's a very small language.
Speaking of gypsies, the Ravnos are the gypsy tribe. How racist is it that they're the clan that got killed first? I mean, is that not racist that they killed the gypsy clan first in World of Darkness?
I'll admit I don't actually know if Romansh is the gypsy language, but that's how I always remembered it. Yeah, it sounds like the Ravnos really got gypped. Bad person.
When their antediluvian woke up, he ate all of the nearby Ravnos, drove the rest of the Ravnos insane, made them all start eating each other, and then got nuked.
So Romansh is the 4th national language of Switzerland, and it's the 10th most spoken language. That makes no sense.
That's what I meant for the gypsy. Romani is the gypsy language.
That would make sense.
Oh yeah, Krellin, what kind of, you were doing a World of Darkness thing? I heard people talking about it.
Wait, what?
You were talking about World of Darkness with people, like for tabletops or something.
Oh, yeah, I have a campaign set up for kind of paranormal investigation branch of the technocracy.
Of the technocracy or of the... I've read a little bit about that. It seems like... So the technocrats would be keeping things fairly static and controlled. In order to basically keep consensus pretty much like...
Their brand of magic is science. Science is technocratic magic. And they sold the masses on it. The masses like, ooh, wait, magic we can all do? If we just do it all the same all the time? That sounds pretty cool. So they do magical things, but they do it through the paradigm of high technology. They have laser guns and jetpacks and
And now I'm thinking of A, the Foundation, and B, Clark's Third Law, which are both directly related.
Yes, I mean it.
I've never. You mean the Foundation series?
Yes, I mean the Foundation series.
Clark's Third Law is the
shame on you.
Any sufficiently
Yeah,
advanced
I know that, but Foundation is Asimov.
Foundation is Asimov, though.
Yeah,
that's true.
There's if it's any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yep, that's Clark's Third Law.
Yeah. There's a correlate to it too, like
the reverse is any sufficiently studied magic is indistinguishable from science.
Is that what it, or from? I thought it was from technology, but okay, from science. So where is Romansh from?
I don't know that Clark actually said that though. It probably was some smart ass nerd.
It's a corollary, so probably not.
Yeah. But anyways, so science is technocratic magic, and way back in like the canon of the mage setting is in the medieval period, science had not actually taken root as the accepted reality. And it was still a magical thing when scientists did stuff. And the more traditional magic of the magical traditions was generally more accepted by their native populations and thus less conflicting with reality. And so they could get away with more power. So in the Middle Ages, the magical traditions had more power because they were able to use more of their magic openly because the world accepted it.
Yeah. Well, what you believe makes what reality is, in a sense.
Yeah.
Your belief makes it real.
And the order of reason was the
But Grandma, those things do exist. There's no reason to go around believing in them.
Was the group that worked science as their magic, and they eventually won over, everybody, essentially. And that became how the world worked. Was through, careful study and advancement of understanding. The rules, the scientific method became the accepted way everybody expected reality to work. So you couldn't break rules in ways that did not mesh with the scientific method anymore, whereas previously you could. So while they are technically the force of static, as a whole, in the year of reckoning in 1999, when White Wolf started putting out all of the apocalyptic books, the one they put out for Mage was the Guide to the Technocracy. And it was the first time they introduced the idea of player character technocrats. The actual parts of the Technocratic Union, but you were players of them.
So this is actually, I read up the article on Technocratic Union because, I don't know, I think you mentioned it in the latest VTM one. Maybe that's why. Or the one
I did say technocracy. I didn't say Technocratic Union, but if you looked up technocracy, you'd find Technocratic Union.
Yes.
So the idea is the PC.
I think it's kind of interesting. So it noted that they were priorly pretty much just presented as the mustache trolling bad guy type things.
Yeah.
I do think it's kind of interesting that it seems like all the kind of things in World of Darkness that are the quote unquote bad guys tend to be ones that favor humans in the most broadest sense. Like,
well,
I mean,
sort of.
Like
the werewolf's worms. The worm is quite fond of humans.
Like, player characters tend to be things that are part of I don't know, kind of human disturbing almost, or mundane disturbing type thing.
Yeah.
Question.
So the technocrats introduced in the Guide to Technocracy were not the faceless monolith, but there were idealistic defenders who honestly viewed these other things in the world, these supernatural things, as threats to people and to reality, and dangerous, and they were protecting people. They were. There was like a certain term for them. I think it was idealists or utopians or something like that.
I saw utopians pop up, though that was more like, I don't know, I forget. It seemed like that was a thing that was breaking away from the technocracy. Maybe it came back in or something.
Yeah,
obviously it's got a storied publication history. That's kind of a
it was kind of breaking away. Old World of Darkness, not particularly compatible because they did not balance the systems against each other. The New World of Darkness made a point to do so. So basically, in the classic World of Darkness, mages won everything because the way the mage system was set up was so free form that it basically the only way to counter magic was with magic. And
magic must defeat magic.
And thus, mages could go around dominating werewolves and vampires fairly easily. They did have some suggestions of ways to have the other supernaturals counter each other's powers and so forth, but and all of the old World of Darkness games I played with that involved mages also involved DMs that were very mage biased, so my experience with it was always mages won. I always thought it was kind of bullshit. Like I got into a fight with another PC over a certain thing, and he was a life mage. He had power over life and bodily functions and so forth, and I was a werewolf. And the GM ruled that his life mastery was sufficient that he succeeded at his magic roll, so he could lock me into a certain form. And I couldn't do anything about it. Like, I had no defense roll. I couldn't spend any of my special, supernatural power points to overcome it. I was stuck in that form because he won his magic roll.
Well, that's a dick move.
I mean, like, seriously, one of the things a werewolf can do is spend a rage point. One of their supernatural power pools, a rage point.
And this is a small number, like willpower or something.
Well, it's a pool that ranges from 1 to 10.
Yeah, that's again.
Yeah.
Well,
And so I could spend a rage point and instantly change into a certain form. And he wouldn't let me spend a rage point to change my form. And I was like, but, I mean, that's my whole freaking superpower. You know? You need to let me use my superpowers.
I mean, was this set up as something that would be clearly a clear antagonism between players, or between player characters? I mean, it sounds like antagonism between players because it sounds like it was just being a dickbag, though.
Yeah, so we were supposed to stay at this safe house overnight and wait for somebody, or wait for something, and
Wait,
he
seriously,
wanted to leave.
this was like some random bullshit, not like.
Yes,
Not like
and
not
that
like,
player
oh,
decided he
Krellin,
wanted us to.
Krellin, my character's the guy that murdered my character's brother or something, right?
No, he just wanted to leave, but I was trying to make him not leave. That was all it was.
Wow. Oh, that's a dick move.
Yeah, it was bullshit.
It's pretty fucking ridiculous.
But in a lot of the meta plot, like I wrote in the latest episode write-up I did, so I didn't specifically say it in here, but what the technocracy did to Zapathruza, and yes, I know I ruined that, was nuked him.
Ravnos Antediluvian or whatever, right?
Yeah, they nuked him. They actually nuked him 3 times.
With an atomic explosion?
They were neutron bombs.
Okay.
So what they first tried to do is they positioned satellites over him and tried to focus sunlight on him. He was fighting a bunch of Kuei-jin. He was fighting 3 Kuei-jin.
Incidentally, how does maybe it would work because of how the consensus works or something, but are vampires just in general, presumably they're not weak to presumably they're weak to sunlight because you can presumably walk around in fluorescent light and stuff just fine.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not just light. Is there some magical quality to the sun?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is not like we will actually see.
Or is it stuff like
we haven't gotten to it yet, but in Bloodlines there is actually a scene where we get captured by a human. We have to carry the idiot ball. We have no choice. It's plot driven.
You've done that a couple times already.
Yeah, but we're gonna get caught by a human who's gonna run a bunch of tests on us.
Fucking Fake Nines was about the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever seen.
You might think the Mandarin's a little more ridiculous because it is kind of ridiculous. But anyways, we're gonna get caught by this guy, and he's gonna run us through a battery of tests. And one of the first tests he does is turns on a bunch of UV lights to see if UV radiation has any effect on us, and it has no effect at all.
Wait, so this is Kuei-jin that captures you or what?
No, he's a human. He works for the Kuei-jin.
Okay.
But he's a human.
So do the Kuei-jin have obviously in our own mythology, especially Chinese vampires have wildly different mythos.
They're an entirely different species.
Okay, so they're just totally fucking different.
Yeah. Kuei-jin are actually spirits that have re-inhabited their bodies after going through some kind of harrowing in the underworld.
So they're kind of like in Japanese mythos, you have the concept of I forget what they're called, but like a tsukugoimi or something, which is basically an inanimate object that takes on a spirit from living so long. So
not really. They usually have karmic debts to repay, is why they come back.
So they're ghosts.
Yeah, sort of, kind of, except they are stuck in the body.
I wonder if
body dies, they die again.
I wonder if Kuei is supposed to be because Gui, is usually pinionized as GUI. Gui means ghost, for instance.
I think it is. I mean, so the Kuei-jin
in Mandarin, Jin, which is what I've read, is person, and that's Japanese. Yeah. That's totally different.
It is.
I'm not at all surprised if it's a mashup because it's probably something applied to them by someone else,
apparently is their word for themselves. They call themselves the Kuei-jin. They call the other kind of vampires Kinjin. I don't know if it actually ever explained the etymology of those words.
It might just mean might just be short, like how they call themselves kindred.
Yeah, I think that is like what it is.
I mean, it might be like someone saying like, saying that you're American, you might say they're American or something,
Yeah, I mean, I actually have the Kindred of the East source book right here in my hands, but I don't think it ever actually said. But yeah, they are an entirely different species. And when we talk to the Kuei-jin in Bloodlines, we will also have a chance to go over that. You could talk to the leader of the Kuei-jin, and yeah, that's right. And she will say, we bear some superficial similarities with you, but we are not the same species at all. We are not alike. Anyways, so the antediluvian was fighting a couple Kuei-jin, and the technocracy tried to concentrate sunlight on them. And since sunlight is equally deadly to the Kuei-jin,